And look, in terms of broader issues, obviously we've just had this terrible earthquake in Christchurch. We're still really learning what the full ramifications are. I mean, we know they're enormous. We know that a lot of people are dead, and it's a huge tragedy for New Zealand. How big of an impact do you think this is going to have on the entire country, and what do you think how can we best, I guess, respond and recover from it? And I mean, are you impressed with the way our politicians are doing that so far?
I'm deeply impressed with John Key. I think he's been incredibly genuine. He's been a real leader. So he's not only been there in amongst it, he's shown genuine compassion, and he's been very careful about not progressing and moving on to issues before it's the right time to do so. And I think that is one of the big challenges that we've got. There's certainly a deep acknowledgement throughout New Zealand and concern for the people of Christchurch. But we all know that these things are hard to sustain, despite the fact they're going to need sustaining, because it's quite clear to everybody that Christchurch has got some deeply personal issues that will go on for quite a while. So talk about rebuilding has to be done carefully. I have some cultural issues with New Zealand as a country, though. I think that we're very lucky because we're egalitarian, so we believe that real wealth is when everybody's better off, and that comes from the development of a culture when we were able to make sure that was the case. But in recent times we've slipped away from that position, but there's still a sort of naive comfort factor that you get in New Zealanders, that we don't need to change, that it's it's God's own country, and that's fair enough for a few people, but for many people this increasing dislocation and the underperformance of New Zealand actually hits the road for some people in areas of education or crime or health, which is something I'm very aware of now. So perhaps a silver lining that comes out of the Christchurch tragedy is a bit of a wake-up call for New Zealand about earning our way, because to put Christchurch back on its feet is going to empty the cupboards. So the government, quite rightly, has said that that's an absolute priority for the country, and nobody would question that. The result will be cutbacks in other parts of the country that perhaps we wouldn't have previously considered, and I think that it's possible that some of those cutbacks will actually be good for us in the longer term. But I think there is an urgency that is not highlighted at the moment, nor does it need to be, but we also need to think that just because the earthquake has happened doesn't mean to say that there's not another natural disaster that could befall New Zealand in the near term. And frankly, I'm not sure that we could sustain it, given that going into this position we were already pretty much an underperforming economy. If you layer on top of that that world financial markets have not properly recovered, I think they're recovering, but systemically they're still highly risky in my view.
Okay. Well, thanks for making some time to talk to me, Lloyd. Now, obviously you've had widely publicised health issues in recent times, but you've been back at work for some time now. What's your sort of weekly routine now that Marco is here at Infratil as the CEO? What's your role?
Well, the important thing about Marco's role is that I appointed him at least a year, maybe 18 months before I knew that I was ill. So it was fortuitous to the extent that when I became ill, there was somebody ready to take over. But I appointed him because the scale of Infratil and Morrison and Co was getting to a level that it needed a larger, it needed a better manager than me. And I think if I look back, as one tends to do when one's sick, on what you've done right and what you haven't done.
Okay. Well, thanks for making some time to talk to me, Lloyd. Now, obviously, you've had widely publicised health issues in recent times, but you've been back at work for some time now. What's your sort of weekly routine now that Marco is here at Infratil as the CEO? What's your role? Okay. Well, thanks for making some time to talk to me, Lloyd. Now, obviously, you've had widely publicised health issues in recent times, but you've been back at work for some time now. What's your sort of weekly routine now that Marco is here at Infratil as the CEO? What's your role?
Well, the important thing about Marco's role is that I appointed him at least a year, maybe 18 months before I knew that I was ill. So it was fortuitous to the extent that when I became ill, there was somebody ready to take over. But I appointed him because the scale of Infratil and Morrison & Co was getting